Hello, everyone. I am so honored and happy to be here with you today. My name is Karen Camerato, and I have been participating in the Heartstrings in-person day retreat for several years now, and it means so much to me to be a part of this and to be among the people that have created this group. It's a very special and amazing group. So if you're brand new to this journey, or if you're brand new to Heartstrings, just know that you are in the right place. I am going to do a presentation today called Putting Grief in Your Pocket, the 8 Stages of Growing Through Grief. And it's a concept that I came up with when I started looking at how I had survived the loss of my child. I am the founder of Rising Above in Memory of. I'm a grief coach, and I'm a mom of 3, 2 here on earth and 1 in heaven. I'm also a bookkeeper, so that's my boring part of my life. The 3 key factors that I feel helped me to start healing were telling my story, which I did over and over and over again, sometimes too much, to the point where I told the same story over and over again to people. But I had a lot of great people in my life that allowed me to do that. And I even did it with strangers in the grocery store, and just whenever I felt the need to tell the story of what I'm going through, what I was going through, and my son, Nicholas, I wanted to. I also think it's really important to have and express gratitude. And if you are newer to this journey, that may sound like an unbelievable concept. And I know that it's very difficult to find gratitude, but hopefully you've seen glimpses of it. You've seen good people in your life that have tried to help you. We all have something that we can be grateful for, even if it is that we were allowed to have that time with our child. And then the third thing, and the thing that I'm talking about today, is taking action in memory of your child. And you will understand more what I'm talking about when I keep talking. But I just wanted to say that I feel like the reason that I'm even qualified to be here with you today and to talk to you is because I've survived. I've survived this terrible loss, and I know that you can survive it too. So where did I come up with the idea of putting grief in your pocket? Well, I'd heard the story and I loved it, but I didn't know where I heard it from. And it turns out that this is a blog post that was written by Jessica Watson, whose blog name is 4 Plus an Angel. And it's just a really beautiful story that kind of illustrates the journey of grief. The best way I can describe grieving over a child as the years go by is to say it's similar to carrying a stone in your pocket. When you walk, the stone brushes against your skin. You feel it. You always feel it. But depending on the way you stand or the way your body moves, the smooth edges might barely graze your body. Sometimes you lean the wrong way or you turn too quickly and a sharp edge pokes you. Your eyes water and you rub your wound, but you have to keep going because not everyone knows about your stone, or if they do, they don't realize that it can still bring this much pain. There are days you're simply happy now. Smiling comes easy and you laugh without thinking. You slap your leg during that laughter and you feel your stone, and you aren't sure whether you should be laughing still. The stone still hurts. Once in a while, you can't take your hand off the stone. You run it over your fingers and roll it in your palm and are so preoccupied by its weight, you forget things like your car keys and your home address. You try to leave it alone, but you just can't. You want to take a nap, but it's been so many years since you've called in sad, so you're not sure anyone would understand anymore, or if they ever did. But most days, you can take your hand in and out of your pocket and feel your stone and even smile at its unwavering presence. You've accepted this stone as your own, crossing your hands over it, saying mine, as children do. You rest more peacefully than you once did. You've learned to move forward the best you can. Some days you want to show the world what a beautiful memory you're holding, but most days you twirl it through your fingers, smile, and look to the sky. You squeeze your hands together and hope you're living in a way that honors the missing piece you carry until your arms are full again. So this may be an advanced concept for you to be thinking about laughter. If you're brand new here, you can't even imagine what I'm talking about. But I just want you to know that as time goes on, if you're aware of the possibility of having it become this for you, I think it's so much easier than just fighting your way through it. You may find that what I'm talking about seems crazy, and you may even find that by me saying that I am currently happy in my life right now, that feels terrible to you. And so all I ask is, if I'm annoying you and if my happiness is annoying to you, just know that I just want you to keep your mind open. I don't expect you to understand or be able to put everything in place here all at once, but just in the back of your mind somewhere, pop in the idea that someday you may be happy again too. Okay, so I'm going to be reading, and I hope that's okay, but I can't remember all this. I am getting old, and so memorization's never been great for me anyway. And then, you put discussing things like grief in there, and it's not a good combination. So anyway, on any given day, I can go into a Facebook group of grieving mothers and find a post that says something like, "It's been 6 weeks since I lost my child. Please tell me it gets better." A plea from a mom new to this journey. And I'm always shocked by the replies. No, it never gets better. It doesn't get better, but it changes. I lost my child 10 years ago, and it only gets worse. Of course, there will be some who say it gets softer. After time, it won't be so raw. I sometimes think that a mom who's lost a child feels that by admitting it gets better, they're giving up on their child. Well, I don't feel that way. And whenever I see these posts, I take it personally as my responsibility to give that mom hope. Yes, it gets better. It takes work on your part, but it can get better. I'm experiencing joy and fulfillment and a love for life that I never thought was possible. So as you listen to me today and go through these stages of grief, growing through grief, I want you to feel empowered. I want to empower you to give yourself permission to take the actions that are required to grow. So whenever I do speak up in those Facebook groups and I say that it's possible to be happy, the responses can be really brutal by some others. They say things like, "It must be nice. I'll never feel that way. As long as I live, I'll never accept it." And sitting here today, you may be wondering, will I always feel this way? Or you may be saying, I'll never feel joy again. So I ask you, please just keep your mind open again. Please keep your mind and your heart open to the possibility that you can heal and grow through your grief. So I want to tell you about my story. Like you, I've lost a child. My firstborn child, Nicholas, was the light of my life. And like so many children who leave us too soon, he was special. He was funny, happy, loving, smart, kind. The list goes on and on. I'm sure you can relate. He was just a special kid. Well, one January morning, there was some snow and freezing temperatures where we live here in South Carolina, and school was canceled and daycare was closed. When Nick got dressed to go play with the neighborhood kids, I was excited for him because he was going to play with street hockey with a brand new hockey stick that he'd gotten for Christmas. His baby sister and I stayed warm and cuddly inside when he went to play. After about an hour, there was a loud banging on my front door with one of his friends telling me that Nick had fallen in the pond. On that terrible day, my special 8-year-old son had tried to help his friend who'd fallen through the ice of our small neighborhood pond. When he crawled out on the ice to offer his hand, the ice beneath him broke, and both boys died that day. I've decided that whenever I tell this story, Nick's story, in public, I'm going to ask everyone to stop and take a minute to think about their child, or whatever you want to think about, so that I can take a moment to think about him. I realized that somewhere along the way, me repeating this story became mechanical, like it sounded mechanical, and I just never wanted it to feel that way. So let's just take a minute to think about our children. I love you. I love you, Nick, and I love all of you and give you so much credit for being here today and trying. And you will realize as I go through these stages that you are on your way to growing through your grief. I appreciate that you let me take a moment, and I hope that you understand why I felt like I needed to do it. That was 25 years ago. And I'm sure that you've heard the saying, time heals all wounds. And you may have learned the hard way for a grieving mother, that's just not true. Only that grieving mother herself has the power to heal her wounds. There's not a book, there's not a therapist, not a loved one, no one person or thing who can heal your wounds or your loss. Your healing has to come from inside of you. It requires more than just waiting. It requires action. I will tell you that I didn't take action for a really long time. I covered myself in numbness and went on with my life, doing what was expected of me, working and taking care of my daughter Brooke and son Colin, who came along about a year and a half after Nicholas died. I saw a therapist early on, and I think that may be how I was able to get to the numbness stage. Don't get me wrong, she was a great help. And without her, I'm not sure I would have been able to function even on a basic level, like going to work or taking care of my other kids. In 1996, when Nick died, the internet wasn't a thing. So I did seek answers. I really think the most common thing that a mom who's just lost a child wants to know is, what do I need to do to make this pain stop? And that was me. I got books on the topic of grief and child loss. I voraciously read stories of other moms and what had happened to their children. I was desperate to find some kind of similarity that could offer me a what to expect when you've lost a child guide, like when I read the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, when I found out I was pregnant. I read all I could on the subject, and to a certain extent, I guess it helped. I also attended a meeting of the Compassionate Friends, but to be fair, I think it was just too soon, and I just wasn't ready to be in the midst of so many others' pain. I also didn't want to leave my kids in the evenings to attend. One well-known book that I read, and I think most people who are grieving know about, is On Death and Dying by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, which talks about the stages of grief. I think we all look at the stages as a checklist of what is going to happen to us next. But I'm sure, as you found out by now, this is not how it works at all. Looking back on it, I realized that the stages, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, are more like common emotions many grievers experience. And I think this is helpful, but it's all about what's happening to you, the emotions that you're overcome with. Well, a lot has happened to my life since Nick died 25 years ago, but it's only in about the last 5 or 6 that I started seeking knowledge, seeking new thought patterns, seeking a new way to live in the world. So you can see that it definitely didn't happen overnight, but it also didn't have to take 24 plus years. After making many changes in my life, I decided I was finally ready to do something in honor of my Nick. I took a course and became a grief coach. And now I work exclusively with moms like us to not only help them through the early days of grief, but also to help them find the meaning and personal growth, and yes, even the happiness that I finally found. As I began working with these moms and interacting with so many of them every day, I was educating myself on how to help the grieving. I circled back around to the concepts that were around when I first became a griever. But what I was looking for were actions that one could take to truly grow through grief. And I couldn't really find what I was looking for. So I started making notes about the actions other moms had taken, the ones who wanted to grow, were trying to grow, had found ways to honor their children and ways to put meaning back in their lives. It was through this research that I created the 8 stages of growing through grief. Just like the stages of grief itself, these stages don't necessarily happen in a certain order or aren't all mandatory in order to grow. As I read through them, please remember that the examples given in each stage may not apply to you. You will figure out what works for you in each stage for the unique you that you are. They don't need to appear or take place in any particular order. They can be acted on them sometimes separately and sometimes all at once. And they can come back and be acted upon several times in your life as you grow. All I ask is as we go through them, that you just keep your mind open. The first stage is allow. This is the one stage where you have very little control over what you're able to do. It's almost as if an alien has taken over your body and you aren't always able to do the things you're telling it to do. During this stage, you must allow your feelings to determine your actions rather than the other way around. Allow crying, allow sadness, anger, desire to sleep, desire to stay home. When these emotions are knocking at your door, you need to allow them because they will cause bigger problems down the road. The main point of this stage of growth is to allow yourself to feel and do what you're able to do, both physically and emotionally. The next stage is tend. During this stage, you must tend to yourself and your needs. Be nice to yourself and find ways to practice self-care, self-love, and self-preservation. This includes getting plenty of rest, drinking water, spa treatments, walks in nature, and seeking the help of a grief professional if necessary. And I will just weigh in on the one thing there, which is as you try these different tools, especially like a therapist, if you go to see a therapist and for whatever reason it doesn't work for you at that time, don't walk away saying, well, therapy's not for me. Just walk away saying that therapist at that point in time wasn't for me. And just keep your mind open to going back around to some of these ideas once you're ready for them. The next stage is process. In this stage, you're processing your loss, moving from shock and denial into the reality of what's happened. During that time, you're learning details about the death, looking through photos and memorabilia, sharing memories with friends and family, and talking about your loss. This is also the time where you may be repeating your story over and over. You are processing what has happened to you. The next step is educate. Here, you're going to learn everything you can about child loss, grief, major life changes, and coping skills. Examples are reading books, visiting websites, listening to podcasts, watching documentaries, attending seminars and retreats. It's all a way to learn more about an experience that you probably have never knew anything about. The next is connect. As a part of this stage, you're identifying the connections that feed your soul: true friends, loving family, church, and support groups. You may need to actively reach out to initiate and maintain these connections because although there are people that want to help, they are afraid to upset and hurt you, and they don't know what to say or do. And more on this, I just want to say that people, they're desperately going to want to fix you and your situation. And as we know, there's nothing that can be done to fix this situation. So when they feel that they're not able to help you, or they're not fixing you, or they're not fixing the problem, they distance themselves because they don't know what else to do. And I just want to say to you that even though it's sort of unfair that we have to take responsibility for connecting, I would encourage you to do it, because we don't want to write off all of these people that are in our lives. We need people. We need people to get through this. And through connecting, we can tell them what we need, but we just need to be honest. And, sometimes what we need to tell people is just, you can't fix it. You don't need to do anything except for sit beside me, listen, nothing, hold my hand, show up, but I encourage you to take responsibility for these connections, because you, in the long run, are going to be so helped by the people that are around you. The next stage is seeking. When seeking, you will look internally and externally for your own personal answers and desires for what you want the rest of your life to look like. This is the perfect time to ask yourself, what would my child want me to do? And then finally, the seventh, no, I don't think that is, it's 8 stages, sorry. The 7th stage is to decide. And I believe this is a mandatory step in growing through grief. It isn't easy, and some people don't reach this stage. But when you do, it can have a direct effect on the quality of the rest of your life. This is when you decide to improve your situation, you decide to allow joy into your life again, and you decide to find meaning and purpose in life. You get to decide who you want to be now, whether it's a modified version of your old self or a completely new person. It's totally up to you. And then the final stage, number 8, is act. And now that you've decided, it's time to take action. You take a step. You plan to go to the gym. You sign up for a class. You volunteer at the animal shelter. You pick up the hobby. You go out with your friends. You start the business. You change the job. You take the trip. You start the charity. You make the move. Whatever it is, the simple act of acting on your plan in one area can have a domino effect on your life and what it can become. And please don't make this more complicated than what it needs to be. All actions do not need to be huge actions. You do not need to create a charity right away. Actions early on can look like taking a shower, getting out of bed, going for a walk. Early on, those small actions can have that domino effect that can help you move forward. And someday down the road, you may be ready for large actions, but just know that it's enough to take those small actions. I know it isn't easy. It's not a simple solution. I know that deciding to grow through your grief is scary, and you may feel in some way like you're betraying your child by making the choice. But at the end of the day, we all have to decide what is the best way to honor our child's life. It's not easy, but it's so worth it. And then I just wanted to read you a quote that may seem very cutting edge, and you may not be ready to hear it right now. But again, I just ask you to keep your mind open and really give a thought to this. It sums up a direction that we can take. And, you know, to be honest with you, in a way, it's terrifying to share this quote with some people that I know are early on in the process, because I know that it may seem like an impossibility. But again, just file this away for later. If you're not ready to hear this now, just know that there are other things down the road that you can do. Okay, so the quote is, oops, I beg people who are suffering from loss to be brave enough to ask this question. What is the life that you can only have without that person? What is the life that I can live now doing things I never would have done because we would have gone in a different direction? I want to have the courage and the curiosity and the creativity to go figure out what that life is. I don't see it as a betrayal. I see it as continuing the really huge life-affirming spirit that she brought to me and the world. And that was written by Elizabeth Gilbert, talking about a loved one that she lost. And so I just want to say, as you go forward in your life, I encourage you to have the courage to truly ask yourself the questions that she's asking. And also to know that there are so many people around that care and that want to help you. And I'm one of them. So if you were to look at the worksheet that I included, which I believe you all got a copy of in your day retreat in a box, there is a place on this worksheet to go through the 8 stages and to give some ideas of what each of those stages could look like. So I'm just going to quickly go through what some of them were for me, and then, you know, hopefully it can inspire you to think about ways that you can grow. Okay, so the allowing stage, the first stage, allow. Some examples of some things that I did to allow were to sleep in. I didn't go out too much at all. I accepted help with groceries and housework and dinner. I cried. I isolated myself. Basically, I just let myself do what I could do, and I didn't push myself. Now that I've so far down the road, allowing looks a little bit different. But I do want to tell you, and I don't want to discourage you, but at the same time, I want to let you know that even 25 years down the road, there are times when this hits me and hits me hard. And I've gone through many, many years of getting through birthdays and anniversaries. And I thought I really had it down to a science. I thought I was okay with it. And this past year, it was pretty difficult. It hit me pretty hard. And I realized that I had to go back to the allowing stage, which is allowing myself to just take a break and give myself some grace that, you know, this is something that I'm going to live with for my entire life. And it wouldn't be right if I didn't. So anyway, in the next stage, tending. I saw a therapist. I started getting my nails done. I took walks. And now tending to myself looks like meditating and doing yoga and relaxing. The next stage was processing. And so some of the examples for me that processing looked like were visiting the accident site, going to the cemetery, digging through photo albums, looking at his death certificate. And again, going back to the telling my story, again, processing, telling my story over and over again, because with processing comes acceptance. And a lot of moms don't like the word acceptance because it sounds like you're saying you accept this horrible thing that's happened. And of course, we don't accept it, but we accept that we can't change it. And so we accept that it's our decision how to move on from there. And I guess I just wanted to say that if I look back on the person that I was before I lost Nick, I call her like silly Karen, like clueless, I just didn't know about the dangers in the world and how fragile and precious everything was. And since then, I've learned it. I've learned so much. I've learned so much about the goodness of people. I've learned so much about myself and about growing. But, to be honest, going back to acceptance, if there was a way that I could change it and I could go back to being the silly, clueless Karen, I would do it. I would do it to have Nick back, because he is an important part of me that is just I'm never going to be completely healed from that loss. But the point with acceptance is that I can't do that. And so I had to accept that it was in my hands as to what I could do next. The next stage is educating. And this is, like I said, reading books, watching interviews with other moms, watching, for you, it could look like watching YouTube videos. There's so much out there, Facebook groups, sharing with other people. Attending this retreat is an important part of educating yourself and learning the tools to deal with this. I later on took a grief coaching class, and I read and did so much studying about personal development. And that's what really started to light me up, just to learn how I could become a better person and how I could become a more educated person and how I could help others through this. Then there was the connect stage, and the connecting is where, in the beginning, I connected with a very small circle of close friends and family. I had a coworker that helped me through this tremendously. Support groups can be a certain form of connecting. I talk to my mom almost every day, and she helped me so much. And now connecting for me looks like talking to people like you, talking to people that are newer in the journey, still staying connected to those raw feelings, and, just trying to give a hand to someone else who needs it. I have weekly Zoom meetings with my family. I have weekly Zoom meetings with with some of my moms in my group. And that has just meant everything to me for staying connected. Then the seek stage. This is seeking, looking for proof that others have survived. I feel like maybe this is the part that I didn't do when I was going through this. I think I kind of got stopped before I started seeking help. Like I said, I tried to go to one meeting and it didn't work for me. And so I just stopped looking for a very long time. And that was my bad. That's on me, because it didn't have to take me 20 years to get to the point where I could feel happy again and that I could make decisions for myself again. It now looks like doing the internal work, looking for the tools and the methods to remove the blocks that I had, like guilt, like the lack of confidence to go forward. Tools for me are journaling. Tools for me are meditating. These are things that help me. Then decide. And this is where for me, I decided that I wanted Nick's loss to mean something. I decided to try new things. I decided that my life was a reflection of Nick, and that his loss and the meaning that it gave to my life, and that it was my decision how I wanted it to reflect on me. And I wanted it to reflect in a way that honored him in a good way, because he was such a good kid, such a happy, good person. And for me to just let it bring me down forever, I didn't feel like that honored him at all. And I kind of took the approach that I was living my life, not only for me now, but for him. And it was my responsibility to live a full life for the both of us. And then the final one is taking action. And for me, early on, taking action was taking a shower, going to the grocery store, going to work. I took care of my kids. I left the house. And then as time passed and I rededicated myself to this process, I started doing some things that completely changed me. And it started with a crazy thing. And if you've ever been around me, you know that this is a crazy truth of mine, is that I took a Zumba class, one Zumba class, and I just remember the feeling of happiness and lightness and something that I hadn't felt in a very long time. And just that little taste of feeling that happiness made me want more. I started doing all kinds of things that I hadn't done in the past. I sought out things. I released relationships that weren't serving me anymore. I ended up quitting the corporate world. I created my own grief group. I wrote a book. I took up a million hobbies, probably too many, but I made everything I did be in search of personal growth. So in closing, I really just want to say that I apologize if I rambled here, but I just really wanted to go through the ways that I was able to receive help and the ways that I was able to grow. And I just want to offer you the same hope. I think everybody just needs a little bit of hope. And just personally, I just want you to know that if you need someone to talk to, I am here. My email address is Karen@risingaboveinmemory.of, and I would be glad to talk to you, share more insights as to what I was able to do. I see the courage that it took for you guys to participate in this retreat virtually or down the road in person, but just give yourself credit for that courage that you're showing and know that you can do it. I love you all, and I hope you have a great rest of your retreat.